Hey guys. All right. So I apologize because I was trying to go live from my desktop, but it's telling me I need extra software. So hopefully you guys will find me over here. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully it didn't mess anybody up on time. So we're starting a little bit late. Let me know if you guys can hear me. I see there's a few people on now. So hopefully this will work much better. I have never tried to go live from my desktop before, only from my phone. And apparently, if you go live from your desktop, you have to have some kind of extra software. So I was not expecting that. So, hey guys, can you hear me okay? Awesome. Okay, what we're going to do today is we are going to go through your 2020 writing plan and how you can schedule out a plan that you're actually going to stick to. Now, I see some names here like Karen and some other people that have been through my HB90 program. So we're going to follow a similar type of system, I guess, for planning your 2020 writing schedule. So first, before we get started, there is a workbook download that I created for you guys that you can go and grab. I tried to put the link in the original thing, but I couldn't do it on my phone. So if you need the link for that, you can just go to my previous video afterward, but I will also post a new link in the community tab after we're done. So you just have to sign up for my newsletter to get this. If you're already on my newsletter, then it should be something that you find in my resource library. So if you have any questions about where to get it, just email me at sarah@heartbreathings.com and I will make sure that you get it. So no big deal. You don't have to have it for this live workshop. You just are going to want it for afterwards. So yay. Oh my gosh, 86 people. This is awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry about the confusion about which one, but we're on now. We're live. We're good to go. Okay, so let's just talk about the life of a writer. So many of us, and you can tell me in the comments if this sounds familiar to you, so many of us, when we get ready to do our 2020 or our writing schedule for the year, what we do is we think about what books we want to write. And that's where we start, is we say, oh, okay, I want to write these 3 books in my series so that I can fast release them. Or I'm going to write, if you're already published, maybe you've got several series already ongoing and you are working on the assumption that you're going to be able to find the time because, hey, you've got a whole year and that sounds like a ton of time. So, oh, you've got a year to do it. So let's think about the books. But where the problem comes in with that is if you start with the books and you start with what books you want to write, you're kind of doing it backwards. So what I think we need to start with, instead of starting with what books we want to write, is we need to start with how much time do we have to work on our writing throughout the year. Because when we start thinking about how many books we want to write, we sometimes overestimate what we can do because we think, yes, thank you guys so much for coming over here. I'm sorry about that confusion. It seems like there's always going to be some kind of issues with live videos. Oh my gosh, we have over 120 people. This is awesome. This might be my biggest live ever. Welcome, 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 you guys. So yeah, what we do often when we start to plan our writing for the following year is we start with how many books we want to write. Overestimation is my middle name. Yes, that's awesome. So we think about, I want to write 5 books or I want to write this whole series. And we're just thinking about like, gosh, if we could just get all this done, we could start making money or we could start publishing this or we could do better or, whatever. And we start with this big idea, but we don't often take our time into consideration. So where I think we need to start when it comes to planning your schedule, and this goes really for anything, but especially for your writing schedule, is you got to start with your time. So where we go with this in step 1 is you need to look at 2020, the entire year, if you want to plan your writing schedule and what you think you can realistically get done without super overestimating, is you have to start with how much time you have. So the first step in this process is figuring out how much time in 2020 you're going to be able to dedicate to your writing process. So I'm seeing a lot of comments come through like, I want to do it all. We want to write all the books. Overestimation is my middle name. Writing life. What life? We're always writing, and that's so true. So thank you guys for those comments. And I see people from like Brazil and Paraguay. Like, this is amazing. Welcome, you guys. This is awesome. So yes, there's 2 links because I started on my desktop and it didn't work. So this is the right one. So hopefully the other one has finished. Let me know if it's still going somewhere, like in the ether. I don't know. Hopefully it's stopped, and I'll have to figure out how to do it for my desktop later. So, okay. So the first step that you're going to do, oh, Romania, how cool. The first step that you're going to do is figure out your time. So you can use the workbook that I created, which has a schedule of the entire year like this, but you can also just use a calendar. One thing that I used to do, instead of actually like using a calendar for like a planner that I would have to mess up, is I would just go into, if you go to Google Calendar, then, oh, it's still going. Ugh. All right. Well, thank you for letting me know. I don't even know how to end it. So just if you guys keep telling people to come over here, that'll be great. If you go to Google Calendar and you take everything off, except maybe the holidays, if you want to leave that on, you can actually print the yearly calendar from Google Calendar. So, or you could just go into Google and say free 2020 calendar to print, and you can get a calendar that you can just print out your own, or you can use the workbook that I have, where I've put together a calendar for you that is just, it has like a notes section on the side, and then it has the boxes for the year or for the month days. And what we're going to do, the very first step that you need to do to really plan a writing schedule that you can actually stick to, is you have to start by marking off the days that you know you're not going to be working next year. This is always the first step, because if you start with how many books you want to write, you're going to potentially way overestimate how much you can get done in the year. So first thing I like to do is take that big calendar. If you already have vacations planned, you already know when birthdays are, or like I know I'm going to the RWA conference next summer, and the dates for that are already out there. So you could start marking things off that you know you're going to be doing next year when you're not going to have time to write. So you've got a Disney vacation, you've got your son's birthday, you are writing, you are doing something like I don't know, RWA conference, you've got family obligations, family barbecue, anything like that. Like, start with holidays. Like, say, you never write on Halloween, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving week, you've always got extra things going on. So take your schedule and take a little bit of time to go through and literally cross off all the days that you know you're not going to be writing. That's the first step. And of course, in the workbook, I walk you through that. I know I saw some people asking for the link. I wasn't able to put it in the description here on my phone, but I'll come back and add it later. And I'll also add it to the description in the community tab after the video is over, so you can go grab it. Yeah, the workbook will help a lot. So start with marking off the days that you absolutely know you're not going to work. So next year, we actually get an extra day because it is leap year. So we get 366 days next year. So starting, instead of thinking, I've got a whole year to work with, 12 whole months, I'm going to write a book a month and blah, 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 blah. Start with the days. Step 1, go through, mark off anything that you already know is either an obligation, a holiday, a birthday, when you don't normally write. Now, one of the things that gets people in trouble is they start to get so excited about their writing and what's possible, and they don't want to be realistic because they want to be able to write all the words. So what they do is they say, well, I don't normally write on my birthday, but this year I'm going to do it. Or I don't normally write on the weekends, but this year I'm going to be different. And we plan that we're going to be our best self all year long, like the very best version of Sarah that you've ever been in your life. I'm going to write every single day, all 366 days, and I'm going to write my very best top word count ever, every single day. And that just doesn't work. And if you are somebody who is constantly overcommitted and you're constantly, overestimating what you're going to be able to get done, then please step back, be honest with yourself, as painful as it can be, and start marking off those days when you know you're not going to write. I never write on my birthday. I very rarely actually write on my birthday week. I never write Thanksgiving week. I never write Christmas week or New Year's Day. So take those things off. When I go to writers' conferences, I don't write. Sometimes for years I used to say, oh, I'm going to write. I will write this year. This will be the first year I write in my room every morning before I go to the conference. And it never happens. So then I lose those days that I expected to write. So be honest with yourself, be realistic, mark those days off. The second part of your time estimation is after you've taken those days off that you know you've got obligations, now you need to take extra time off for those things like illnesses, fatigue, mental health days, just time. Like I have now 2 small children at home. So if I estimated, say I marked off 40 days that I know I'm going to be off next year for vacations and the other obligations, now I need to decide how many days per month do I want to give myself on average where I know that I'm not going to be writing. Like how many days on average a month do I get a headache, or are my kids sick, or do I, if you're a student, how many days do you usually need to take off because you've got exams, or because there's other, things going on, like you stayed up too late studying or whatever it is. So for your individual life, how many extra days a month do you usually need to take off because you're sick or because someone else is sick? Now, for those of you who deal with chronic illness or chronic depression, or you're a healthcare provider for someone else in your family, whether it's your children or you're taking care of an ailing parent, if you have those kinds of things in your life, then you need to take off extra time. And sometimes that can feel really frustrating because you want to be able to get just as much done as everybody else. But you have to be realistic with yourself, because let me tell you this. When you overestimate and you tell yourself that you can get 5 times more done than you think you can, and you're not realistic about needing those days off for your chronic illness or for your depression or for your mental health or for your kids, if you don't get honest about that stuff, then what happens is you push yourself to be the very best version of yourself you've ever been, and you're not giving yourself the space that you need to take care of yourself and the people around you. And then instead of actually pushing yourself in a way that is healthy for you, you can often push yourself deeper into depression because you get so far behind. There is nothing worse in your writing life than to end up like just 2 weeks into the year and already be so far behind you feel like you can never catch up. That's what I always used to do. Is I always used to say, well, this year I'm going to get it all done. And I would make out this plan that was so unrealistic. I wasn't giving myself any mental health days or, illness days. I wasn't giving myself any time like realistically off. And then I would end up so far behind just by the second week in January that I was so depressed and could never catch up. And then I would lose extra time being upset about how much time I wasn't writing. So what I would love for you guys to do is to really think about what limitations you have, about what space you need to really take care of yourself in terms of your mental health, your family. Like I saw some people say they have a disabled partner or they have respiratory disease or whatever. And yes, Renee, it's a vicious self-doubt kind of cycle. What we're doing with this kind of writing plan where you get realistic about your time is we are creating a plan where you build momentum like a snowball. So if you give yourself extra time, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like let's say in January you tell yourself, okay, I've got this 5 days off for my birthday, and then I'm going to take an extra 3 days off. So now you take that 31 days minus 8 days off that you're giving yourself. The worst thing that could happen if you gave yourself that extra time is that you could get an extra day or 2 in and end up ahead. What? Like seriously ahead. That can change your life. Think of them as buffer days. So if you build in those buffer days, you're giving yourself the space you need. But the worst thing that could happen really is that you could add in extra days and get ahead. So give yourself that extra time and allow yourself to build up momentum in a positive way instead of pushing yourself into burnout, self-doubt, and really it's kind of a depression of I'm no good, I can't get this done, I'm way behind all the time. It's that stress that we add to ourselves. So stop adding the extra stress and give yourself the extra days. So the first thing is you take off all the days that you already have obligations or you know you're not going to write. Then you will figure out how many days you have left for the year or per month, whichever way you want to do it. Then you go in and you give yourself extra, like Madison said, buffer days. So you give yourself mental health days, illness days, whatever it is, and figure out how many you want to take throughout the year. And you may know, for example, like this past year, I took extra time off, obviously in September because I had a baby. So if you know you've got some other things coming up next year that you're going to have to take, like it's not on the schedule necessarily, but you know you're going to need some extra time, then go ahead and take that time off special in that month as well. So it's good to have some kind of calendar that you can print out and make notes as to what days you're taking off. And when you've done all of that, you're going to have a realistic schedule where you know how many days per month you can take off. Now, when it comes to those sick days that you give yourself, like I said, for example, let's say you've got, oh, thank you. Let's say you've got, days marked off in January, but then you're also giving yourself, say, 3 days or something like that, where you're going to just give yourself mental health days. The way I like to mark that off in my calendar is just to mark off the first 3 available days. And then what you can do is you might still be writing those days, but we're really just kind of looking at an estimate of how many days you're going to be working. No, I don't have a moderator. I've never had 200 people on a live, so yay. So if I see questions, I will try to answer them as they go up. So anyway, we'll do the best we can. But those are the first kind of 2 steps that you have when you go through your writing plan is you just go through, don't start with how many books you are working with. Don't start with how many books you want to write. Start with looking at how much time you have to dedicate to your writing. That is the first step. If you start with how many books you want to write, you're probably going to overestimate. So the next part, after you have your calendar figured out, you know how many days you're going to be writing this year, the next part of the process or the next part of the system is to figure out an estimate of how long each part of the process is going to take. Now, in my workbook, the parts, like the different parts of the process that I give you in the project sheets is plotting or outlining, rough draft, edits, and publishing. That's what I give you. Now, some of that is not going to apply to everybody. So you can just mark that off. Like maybe you're not a plotter, so you don't plot at all. So you can just mark that off as part of the time you need to finish a novel. Everybody writes a rough draft. Sometimes maybe you write several drafts. Edits, everybody has to do that, but not everybody's going to be publishing. So take the pieces of that you want and get rid of the rest. But when you think about your writing schedule, you have to think about more than just your drafting, unless all you're planning to do in 2020 is just draft novels, which some people do because they're like holding things back, or they're just practicing, or they don't intend to publish, or they're going to edit everything in 2021. So think about your individual situation. For me, I am going to go through all of those steps. I am going to be plotting, drafting, editing, and publishing. And in fact, I will still be drafting my current novel when I hit January. So when I start with Project 1, which is going to be the book I'm currently working on, I'm actually going to mark off plot, and I'm going to start with rough draft, and I'm going to take into consideration the fact that I already have 55,000 words on my rough draft. So Down Home Geek says, Sarah, do you account for advertising time for the book too? So in a way, so in the publishing part of it, that's where I account for any type of advertising that I'm going to do for the launch. So that encompasses like not only my beta reader stuff, but my like making teasers, putting out, like I have a specific, I don't know, plan checklist that I go through when I'm publishing a book, and I'm not usually writing at the same time. So that goes into publishing. Now, when it comes to advertising my normal books, then no, I don't include that in my writing plan, because I can easily be working on my writing in the mornings, and then I do what I call my administrative tasks in the afternoons, which is more like my, I don't know how to say it, like my admin stuff, like my ongoing activities. Now, if you guys have a lot of questions about like how to balance the publishing side and the work side and the marketing side with the actual writing, then I think you would get a lot of my HB90 class, which is starting up on Thursday, because we talk about how to balance that and how to set your schedule. But for now, just easy enough to say that I do not count my like marketing advertising time into my writing time. I count that as separate because I have that as a separate thing on my schedule. So I saw a question come by. Heart Breathings, do you work more than one book at a time? I do not. I personally just work on one book at a time. I know there are a lot of people that can be at different parts of the process at different times. So they might be, you might be plotting project number 2 while you're editing project number 1. So you need to take into consideration what's your system, what's your process. Some of you who are watching might not know your process yet because you're new to writing. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a few minutes. So if I forget, remind me to talk about what if you're new to this. I'm going to make a little note. So you might be when you're actually going to start scheduling your writing plan, which we'll talk about in a minute, you might have some stuff that overlaps. So that's why I would really highly recommend that you color code your projects. So for example, project number 1 might be blue, project number 2 might be green, project number 3 might be pink, but color code your projects, because what you're going to do as part of the final step of the process is you're going to actually schedule out your writing project. And if it's all in black and you're just putting titles, it's going to be very confusing to see at a glance, like what am I working on at any given time, especially if you're working on multiple projects at once. So I don't know if any of you guys watch Kate Kavanaugh here on YouTube. I love her videos. She's working on multiple projects at once. So she would have, definitely would get a lot out of, color coding her projects, and she may do that. So I admire that very much, but I cannot work on multiple projects at once personally. So what you're going to do next is you're going to write out an estimate of how long it's going to take you in terms of days working to finish your book, or to finish each stage of the process. So like I said, if you're not a plotter, then you don't have to create any time for plotting. If you are already done with the rough draft of project 1, then you just need to estimate your edits. But wherever you are, make it work for you. So what I like to do when it comes, I'm just going to briefly talk about each stage of the process and how I come up with my estimates. So when it comes to plotting, which if you guys have seen my videos before, you know that I am a serious plotter. I have to outline my novel. So when it comes to outlining for me, I usually give myself at least 3 weeks to outline. If it's a bigger book, like I know I'm going to be working at the beginning of the year on book 11 in my Demon series. If you've never written a big series like that, it has 4 points of view. There's each of the final 2 books are going to be over 100,000 words. So I'm probably going to give myself more like 6 weeks to plot that book, just because I know from experience. So what do you do if you don't have enough experience? How do you plan a writing schedule if you don't know how long it's going to take you to plot or outline your book? There is no definitive, easy answer to that question. All it is you have to kind of guess. But one of the biggest tips that I'm going to give you is, if you don't know how long it normally takes you to plot, write a rough draft, do your edits, if you don't know how much time it takes, then what you need to do is you need to start a journal of some kind where you can put together that data. So even if you've written a few books, but when you think back and you're like, gosh, I don't know how long I did spend plotting that book, one of the best things you can do for yourself is it can be something just on a random piece of paper. You can get a very small little journal that you keep. You can do it digitally in Google Docs or in a spreadsheet or something like that. But just start keeping track of when you started a project and when you finished. So if you're just now, say January 1st, starting a brand new project and you're going to plot it, then give yourself an estimate that you think feels good. It's going to totally be a guess. Say, I'm going to give myself till the end of January. That's 31 days, or 31 days minus whatever days you took off. And you're going to give yourself that amount of time to plot the book. But then if you don't know for sure how long it takes you, you have to keep track. So let's say you make a note in your journal and you say project number 1 started on January 1st. Give yourself a little bit of information each day about how far you got into the process. Okay, January 2nd journal entry says, I got, the character sheet for Harper finished, or whatever it is. Just write a little line of what you did. Then when you finish it, let's say it took you longer than you expected and you finished it on February 10th. You make a note that you say, finished my plotting on February 10th. It took me X amount of days. So let's say you took, several days off in January, a couple in February, and it ended up taking you 25 days to complete your edits. Then what you do is you say in your journal, plotting for this book took me 25 days. Now you have a better idea next time you go to plot your next book that you need to give yourself at least 25 days. And if you keep a running journal of how long it takes you to complete each stage in the process, every time you write a book, you're going to get a better idea of how long it takes you. If you don't keep some kind of track of it, then it's going to take you a lot longer to figure out how to estimate your time. Drafting is the next one. So drafting a book is probably one of the easiest ones to estimate if you know how many words you can write on average in a day. Now, some people have said it's better to use median instead of average. It's up to you, however you want to calculate it. I just use an average. Now, earlier this year, we did a Heart Breathing's Word Sprint Challenge. I'm not sure if any of you guys are in that group. I thought nobody was commenting because it wasn't showing me anything. But now I do see that there are comments here. So I apologize if I missed you and you had a question. Go ahead and pop it back up on the screen. So I was like, gosh, nobody's commenting at all. Are you guys still here? Okay. So if you joined the Heart Breathing's Word Sprint Challenge earlier this year, we did a challenge where we took like 5 days and we did sprints of different lengths at different times of day. So for example, we took one day and we tried 10-minute sprints, in the morning. Then another day we tried 25-minute sprints in the evening and things like that. And we had this process for coming up with what is your ideal sprinting time. And I think, yes, we're going to do a new one, Cassandra. I think that actually really helps you to come up with your average word sprint time as well as your ideal word sprint time. So, Carrie, I see your question, so I'll get to it in just a second. If you think you're a morning writer, you might actually find out that you write more in the afternoon. So yes, we are going to be doing another Word Sprint Challenge. So I have a Heart Breathing's Word Sprint Challenge group. So you can join that group. It's going to stay the same group. We've got, over 600 people, I think, in there. And we have a weekly accountability thread and everything. So it's definitely a great group. And we're going to start at the beginning of the year a new Word Sprint Challenge to help people find their sweet spot when it comes to how long sprints. Because sometimes I find if I try to write 30-minute sprints, I kind of lose steam and I can't write as many words in 30 minutes as I can if I do just a 20-minute sprint, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. But some people need a full hour for sprints. So it's very individual to you and your system. So I highly recommend that you come join my Word Sprint group. I will link to that in the community tab later today too. Let me make a note so I don't forget. And it's on Facebook, Mary. So I think it's just called HB Word Sprint Challenge or something like that. But I will link to it. If anybody has a link, feel free to drop it in the comments. So Yeah, so this is probably why I need a moderator. But what you can do if you don't have the group is you can just try a few word sprints yourself, or you can just take an hour or your normal amount of time. So like Roseanne says, I don't like writing by sprints. I like to write by scenes. So it's going to depend on your process. So if you're new to this, then experiment with it, have fun with it, try different things and see what works for you. But for estimation purposes for this group, then you can just estimate or play around with how many words you think you can write per day, or how many scenes you can write, or whatever system you use in a single day. Then you can figure out how many scenes are going to be in your novel, or how many words are going to be in your novel. Again, this is probably just an estimate. And then figure out how many days you need to write this book. So I'm going to go back to this question real quick. Sorry, there's my little finger. I'm not great at live videos, you guys, but we're getting there. I wish there was a way to pull this in. Okay, so Carrie asked, how many hours are in your writing days? So when I have a writing day, I write for 3 hours. So usually it is from 9 to noon. So that's what I was giving myself before I had a baby. So I used to give myself from 9 to noon, and I wouldn't necessarily be writing the entire time because I like to take breaks in between sprints, and sometimes I would take time to like make comments in other groups, but usually it's a 3-hour writing day for me. Right now, because I have little Evie at home, I am lucky to be getting an hour at a time. So I will try to at least do 2 hours a day when I'm writing. So it's but it's broken up into several times throughout the day rather than being able to do it all at once. And I did see another question, so I'm trying to find it real quick. Sorry, guys. How come I always plan my outlining, writing down ideas for it, have tons of thought drafts, but never start the actual writing process? Whew, that is a really tough one. Sometimes I think for people, you enjoy the outlining process and you get really like excited about what you're going to write. But then when it comes to sitting down and actually starting to write, it's too scary. That would be, I think, what's happening is you're scared that if you actually sit down and write it, that the words aren't going to come, that the story's not going to come out the way that you hoped it would. And the best advice that I can give you is start those sprints and just force yourself to start getting some writing done. Because if you could plan all you want for the rest of your life, but if you don't sit down and start writing that book, you're never going to have a finished book. So if you guys want, I can do a video on how to actually sit down and write your book. Like I have a lot of thoughts on this. So we can talk about that more at another time. But I would say usually if you're doing a lot of the planning, but you're not actually ever sitting down to do the writing, then it's a fear thing. You're just scared of what's going to happen. You're scared. And maybe you actually sit down and write and it doesn't come out the way you hoped. And then you start to get scared that you're not a good writer. And so you just stop writing. But the truth is, none of us are perfect when we're writing rough drafts. So you have to allow yourself to get in there and have it not be any good. And just, scared it'll be crap. Like sometimes it is going to be, really bad writing. And some days are going to be better than others. So you have to just give yourself permission to just start getting words on the page. So, just give yourself, start slow. Say, I'm just going to write for 10 minutes. And if you've got this whole outline, you've got the planning going, you know what you're going to write. So just give yourself that time. Yes, I only need to write for 20 minutes. I only need to write for 10 minutes, and start with 10 minutes a day until you start to feel a little bit more confident. And don't worry if it's terrible, because you can always come back and edit it. So that is something that sorry, Mark, that was crazy. Someone recently liked something I wrote and I questioned their mental faculties. That's hilarious. Yes, I'm sure it was better than you think, Mark. All right. So getting back to our estimates, when it comes to your drafts, the estimates are probably the easiest than anything else. So if you can write, let's say you figure out how many sprints you can do. So I'm saying right now, I am writing on average about 2 hours a day. I know that in an hour, I can write at least 1,000 words in an hour. Sometimes I can do more than that, but 1,000 words an hour. When you are estimating your word count, this is another just little tip here from me to you. If your best ever day is 5,000 words, do not put down that you're going to write an average of 5,000 words, because you're just not going to have your best ever day every single day next year. Give yourself, like, if your average is 2,000 words, pull it down and give yourself 1,500 words as an average. Because just like I was talking about with the time estimator, if you overestimate, you're going to end up behind, and you're going to start a snowball of negativity and avoidance and fear and all of that. But if you give yourself, like Evelyn says, a buffer zone where you say, you know what, normally I write 2,000 words a day. I'm going to, because truthfully, I can write about 1,800 to 2,000 words an hour when I'm really on. But I have to be on. And I know that every day next year, I am not going to be, Amazon delivery. Did you guys hear the doorbell? Yay. So I know that I'm not going to be on every single day next year. It just doesn't happen that way. So I'm going to give myself a buffer and say 1,000 words an hour. The worst that can happen is I can get ahead and beat my average, and then I get more done. But even when I give myself that extra time, I still sometimes end up behind. So don't try to expect yourself to be the very best version of yourself at all time, because you're going to have bad days. Yes, Amazon delivers on Sundays. It's so crazy. Little Amazon Prime van outside. Celestial Writer says, I never really outlined before. I usually write by scenes in a journal, then type it, which is kind of like my editing part of the process. What can I do to start outlining properly? I think writing by scenes is actually a good way to do it. Now, I do have a video on how I outline my novel, but I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of I have a whole series on craft and marketing that's coming up next year in January and February. So stay tuned, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to start outlining if you haven't before. But I also have a whole series of videos on how I plot my novel. So if you go back and look for that, I have a workbook that will help you kind of start the outlining process. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go check that out. So rough draft, again, if you know that you can write, say, 1,000 words an hour, and you're going to give yourself on your writing days, remember, not every day is a writing day. You've marked off a bunch of days already. 2 hours to write. That means 1,000 words times 2 hours is 2,000 words a day. Then you estimate how long your writing project is going to be. So for example, the book I'm currently writing, my estimate is it's going to be about 95,000 words. I'll just bump it up to 100,000 words. So you can say 100,000 words divided by 2,000 words a day is 50 days. So I'm going to need 50 days for writing my rough draft. Then what you need to do is go back to that calendar that you already filled out, and you need to count out 50 days. Now remember, it's not going to be January 1st through the 31st, because you've got days there that are marked off. So my birthday, for example, I'm not going to write the day before, I'm not going to write the day of, I'm not going to write the day after. So go ahead and count out 50 days, but you have to skip the days that you already said you would not be writing. So let's say you marked off all the weekends of the year because you don't want to write on the weekends. You would have to go, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then skip Saturday and Sunday, and then day 6 would be Monday again. Because when you just give yourself 50 days, but you're not going to be writing some of those days, then the average kind of falls apart. Does that make sense? So that's how you do your rough draft. Then you've got edits. Now, if you've never made it to the editing process, how do you estimate how long it's going to take you to edit your novel? My rule of thumb is plan that it's going to take you just as long to edit as it did to write the book. So if you give yourself 50 days to write the rough draft, give yourself 50 days to edit. But again, if you've never, like Sue Ann just said, this will be my first time editing. If you've never edited before, do yourself a huge favor and go ahead and make notes about your process as you go. we talk about the notebook challenge. This is a perfect way to use a new notebook. Pull out a notebook and start making notes about how your writing went every single day. I'm actually going to be using a horizontal Erin Condren for next year, where I am going to start writing down how my writing went every day so that I can continue to refine my progress or my process. So if you've never edited before, then it's a really good idea to mark down what day you started edits, how long it took you to edit, say, each chapter, and then how long it took you to edit the entire book until you felt like it was good. And for many of us, like when I'm editing, I am going through the book several times, probably at least 4 or 5 times before it's completely ready to go. So make notes of how many times you had to go through the novel, because you may do one editing pass that is just cleaning up the typos, and you may do another editing pass that is just like adding more emotion or, stuff like that. So you need to make notes about your editing process as you go and what worked and what didn't work, so that when you come back to edit your next book, you get better and better and better at it. Now, I saw somebody just mention reading along. So that is such a great thing. I talked about this in my editing series. If you use like naturalreader.com, it will read your book to you. That is an entire editing pass for me. You can like upload your Word doc to it or copy and paste it, and it will read it out loud to you. And you hear so many more mistakes when it's being read to you than you do when you're just reading it, because often we skip words. So definitely a good writing process. I know that for, say, a 90,000 word novel, it's going to take me 2 days usually. It's called Natural Reader. I think it's naturalreader.com. I can pull it up real quick. Naturalreaders.com with an S on the end of it. And it's free. It's a free text to speech thing, and I think they even have a Chrome extension that you can use, but you can upload your book to it and it'll read it to you, and you can choose a male voice or a female voice, and then you can pay for extra voices. So how long does it take Natural Reader to read your book to you? You can speed it up, I believe. I haven't used it in a while because I did not finish a book this year. I got a baby instead of a book. But you can speed it up so you can do it double time, but on average, it will take about an hour to read 10,000 words or 9,000 words. So if you have a 90,000 word book, it's usually going to take you about 10 hours. So just as an average, but you can speed it up. And there are other things that will read it to you. So Word has a narrator function, Apple's text to speech, Kindle will read it to you. Google Docs actually, I think, will read it to you, and you can choose several speeds. So if it's going too slow, you can speed it to double time. But listening to your book is a great part of the editing process. So make notes about all the steps you take when you're doing it. How long does it take your beta readers to finish your book? How long does it take you to, have your editor actually go through it and get it back to you? All of that stuff is going to be taken into consideration. Now, somebody asked me, do I work on multiple projects? So I don't work on multiple projects, but when my book goes off to the beta readers, I am starting to plot usually the next book. So I guess in a way I'm working on 2, but in my mind's eye, when my editing is done enough that I can send it to beta readers and to my professional editor, then I'm okay to start working on the next book, because that one is kind of done for me at this point. And working on the next book, I'm only doing plotting or outlining because I need that extra outlet. Now, sometimes if it's a doozy of a book, I do need a little bit of extra time, like 2 weeks before I can start something new. But that's why it's important that you start a notebook and take notes about how your editing is going. Because if you do that, let's say you just estimate your this year, but you take really detailed notes about how it went, then think about how much more powerful your planning will be for 2021, because you'll have this wealth of data to look back on and say, wow, I actually finished every single edit within 15 days of finishing the book. And you'll have that data right there at your fingertips. So I just saw a comment, this is kind of scary. I'm not sure I can commit to such a level of writing. I'm actually coming at it from I've written more than 25 novels. I've been professionally writing with a full-time income for 10 years, starting next year. So I know I've got a different perspective than somebody who's just starting out. If you're just starting out, don't worry about all the edits and the professional edits and the beta readers. Just ignore that I even said that. Just think about plotting and writing your first book. If you need to, give yourself the whole year to do it. Give yourself 2 years if you need to. If you need to, give yourself time to learn more about writing. Now, that's not something that I included in this, but if you're totally brand new to writing and you don't really know even how to craft a book, how to plot a book, then start adding some time to figure out how to write. I started writing 3 years before I started publishing, and I spent those 3 years doing nothing but learning how to write. JD Robinson was on the live just a minute ago, so you can say hi if you're still here. She has a great YouTube channel too if you guys want to check her out. She was one of my first critique partners, and I met her through NaNoWriMo when we both lived in Raleigh. And I mean, if it wasn't for her and some of my other friends, yeah, there she is. Hey, JD. If it wasn't for her and some of our other friends that we wrote with, I would not be the writer I am today, but we worked together for years before I ever published a book. So, give yourself that time. If you're starting to get scared by like, oh, am I supposed to write 9 books this year? Am I supposed to do this or supposed to do that? Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just start with the plotting and the rough draft. Start with thinking about what you need to learn. So if you need to, give yourself, the first 6 months of the year to just play around with different stories. I mean, I wrote tons of novellas, short stories. I even wrote an entire romance novel that I submitted to Harlequin, and that's not at all the kind of stuff that I write anymore. But it took me years of learning how to be a writer before I was ready to start publishing and start, making money doing it or anything like that. So if it feels overwhelming, always just step back. Nobody's expecting you to start writing this year and suddenly start, making money or, start publishing. Just take it one step at a time. And like I said, if you download the workbook and some of these things don't apply to you, like publishing or even edits yet, then start with what you know you're going to be working on. I know there have been other questions that have come on, so I'm sorry that I've missed them. You can feel free to ask them again. Do you have novels that you don't feel you're ready to write yet? Are there any of your own plots or themes that intimidate you? Whew. We could get so off topic here today. There's so many good questions. Yes. So there are definitely books that I don't feel ready to write yet. Joanne, I see your question. I'm going to get to that next. I love writing multiple POV. It is something I really, really enjoy. The book I'm currently working on has 8 points of view. And my main series, my Shadow Demon Saga, has 4 points of view, but it is difficult to write multiple POV. If it's your first novel, please don't do that to yourself. Write a single POV because it is very difficult. So, I would love to write a more epic fantasy style series. Like one of my favorites of all time is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. We named our daughter after one of the characters, Nynaeve, from that series. I would love, like, every time I read his work, I'm just like, oh, it's so brilliant. I would love to be able to write something that epic, but I'm scared of it. And I don't feel like as a writer, I'm ready for that yet. So yes, there are things hopefully I will mature into. But even after 10 years of writing professionally, I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't think I'm, quite at that level. So I think that we have to just kind of meet ourselves where we are and continue to grow. So the next question was, do I have a list anywhere of books that I recommend? So if you go back on my channel and hit playlists, there's a playlist called How to Write a Novel or something like that, How to Plot Your Novel. And on that, I have a whole list of books that I recommend on that. I think I've got it in the description box, but also in the download for that about how to plot a novel. I have a whole list of books that I truly recommend, like James Scott Bell's Superstructure, K.M. Weiland's Outlining Your Novel, K.M. Weiland's Character Arcs, Creating Character Arcs, like so many books there. Then if you also go to my How to Edit a Novel series, I also have a list of books that I highly recommend you read on editing. So definitely check those out. So there is a list, but just go to those playlists and you should be able to find them. I think I put them in the description box for you guys. All right. So that's my rule of thumb with estimating your edits is to give yourself as much time to edit as you did to write the novel. And then once you know more about your process, you can get a better idea of how to estimate that. I have some friends that edit as they go. So they'll write a chapter and then they'll edit it. So they might not be able to put a different number on the rough draft estimate and the edits estimate because they're doing it all at once. So if that's you, just give yourself like a writing estimate, because by the time they get to the end of the book, they've already edited it several times. I am not like that. I just plow through it, and then when it's done, I go back and edit it. Sometimes when I go back to edit it, I have to rewrite half the book because something changed and it needs changing. So it's just, what's your process? And if you don't know your process yet, then just give yourself the freedom to enjoy learning what your process is. Try it both ways. Try writing a chapter and then seeing if you want to edit it or not. But I'll tell you, if you end up writing a chapter and then you go back to edit and you go back to edit and you go back to edit and you never let it go and you never move forward, that's not your ideal process, because you're getting too hung up in the making it perfect, the perfectionism. So if you're a perfectionist, try to just let yourself zip through. Just a little bit of my own process that happened is I used to try to go back. Like if I would write a chapter and then I would say, oh, this is a, problem that, like this changed at the end of the chapter. Now I need to go back and rewrite this other part. So then I'd go back and start from the beginning and rewrite the first 3 chapters. But then I would keep writing, and by the time I got to chapter 6, something else would change that affected the very beginning of the book, because I'm still kind of figuring out the plot or the characters as I'm writing. So then I would have to go back and change things I had already edited. So then I change it, then I get to the end of the book and something else changes. So I found that I was wasting time, like editing and re-editing and re-editing. So for me, my process works best if I just go through the entire draft and then make notes about what needs to change. So I'll give myself a little note right there inside my rough draft that says, go back and make sure that I bring in this thread or that I change this character or whatever. And then I don't edit anything until the whole book is done. So that's just my process. But everybody here on this live video might have a totally different process. So don't let anybody tell you there's one way, because there's not one way. It's just what works for you or what doesn't work. And that's really the only rules. I'm seeing a lot of love for Aphrodite. We all have love for Aphrodite. Sarah, how to shift focus from dreaming of being a 6-figure author to actually writing process. Where is the golden middle? That's complicated, because I think that we can often get really hung up on our, like, I want this so bad, that it actually adds more fear and overwhelm to our, our lives. So I think that what you have to do is you have to let go of the idea of, I need to be a 6-figure author, or I need this, or I need that, and just follow what makes you happy. So follow the excitement of the idea, start writing the book, get the book done. Create a habit for yourself where you say, I'm going to sit down every day and write a little bit of words, and then start tackling the things later that, that are, let's see, how do I want to put it? Once you've got the book finished, then you can start tackling the, how do I take this book and start making 6 figures as an author? I mean, when I first started publishing, of course, I dreamed of making 6 figures as an author, but I didn't know if it was possible. I had no idea. And, when I first published my first book and I sold 60 copies, I was like, oh my God, this is insane, because I didn't know 60 people that would just go out and buy my book as a friend. And so it's, when that started happening, it was super exciting, but I tried to live in the moment and be excited for every step of the process. But when you put this pressure on yourself and say, I've got to go from nothing to 6 figures, then it's almost like you're holding yourself back, because you are putting these huge demands on yourself. And so nothing you do is going to be good enough. Don't steal your own joy by expecting yourself to go from 0 to $100,000 a year. Don't focus on the money. Just focus on what's fun for me. Focus on, I could talk forever about focusing on how to write a series that's going to make money. But we don't have time for all that stuff. Elena says, can you make a video how to stay motivated, make a gratitude and journal every day to help you in achieving your dreams? Yes. I can make a video on that. Let me see if I missed anything. Nope. Okay. I'm going to make a note about that. Stay motivated. Okay. So back to the topic. So as you go through each process, each step of the process, plotting, drafting, edits, and publishing, figure out which parts are relevant to you, and then estimate how long it's going to take you. And like I said, let's just say, for example, you write, 2,000 words a day on your writing days on average. Your book is going to be 60,000 words, then it's simple math. You take the 60,000 words, you divide it by 2,000 words a day, and it's going to take you about 30 days to write your novel. And this is just your rough draft, let's say. What I like to do with that estimate, if I say 30 days, is I give myself an additional buffer. So if you get the theme here, it's all about giving yourself extra time, more time than you think you are going to. So give yourself that extra time. So if I say it's going to be 30 days, I give myself 35 days. Then when you actually go to plan that out, don't count all 35 days starting from day one unless none of those days are marked off. If 5 of those days are marked off, you have to skip those days and move to the next available day. So hopefully I'm explaining that well. Once you get the download or the workbook, you should be able to see that a little bit better. So then what you should do is you should have, now I put into the workbook 9 projects because I know everybody has their own process. Some people are writing short stories. Some people write a book a month. I don't know how they do it, but some people do it. On average, I write about 2 books a year, but I did not get a book finished this year, unfortunately. So I'm going to fill this out for myself and see how much I think I can do next year. I saw a question come through about if I'm still going to do a video about how much description goes in your book. And yes, I am. I'm going to have some craft videos that are going up at the beginning of next year. We're going to talk about pacing, description, dialogue, and a bunch of that other stuff. So yes, that is definitely coming. I need to do just a live video Q&A because there's so many questions. I feel like I hope I'm not sounding too scattered. You can publish short stories anywhere. You can publish them on your blog. You can publish them to Amazon, to Apple. I don't think there's any minimum except maybe 1,000 words. You have to have at least 1,000 words to be able to publish it. You can also put short stories together in anthologies. So yeah, lots of choices of where to do short stories, but don't feel like you have to fill out 9 projects. You might only have 1 project. So don't use this as an excuse to overwhelm yourself or feel like you're comparing yourself to anyone else. I never want you to feel that way. Just know that I just put 9 on there for people who are doing a lot of stuff so that people will have enough. If you have more than 9 projects, then just print an extra side of this page. But what I want you to do, I saw someone ask again about the workbook. So if you go to heartbreathings.com and click on blog, the most recent post has a place for you to sign up for my newsletter, and it will send you this workbook. But I'll also make a post about it on the community tab after this is over if you want to get it. And yes, I'm requiring that you sign up for my newsletter to get it as a download, but you can just unsubscribe if you don't actually want to be there. So yes, we're going to have to do a thing because we're almost to an hour and I cannot answer all of these questions, you guys. I'm sorry. But we'll plan one before too long. So I give you space for 9 projects. I want you to go through and estimate to the best of your ability how long it's going to take you to complete each one of those stages of the process. Then the final step of planning your 2020 writing plan is going to be to take that calendar where you already marked off the days you're not working, and you're going to schedule out these writing projects. This is where I really, really recommend that you use different colors. I like to use this type of really skinny washi tape for myself, but you can also use just colorful pens if you want to. You could also use highlighters, but I would, if you've got multiple projects that you're going to try to complete next year, I would assign a color for each project. Now, if you want to get really extra, you could assign a different color for each stage of the process. So project 1 plot could be light blue, project 1 rough draft could be a dark blue, project 1 edits could be a teal blue. So that kind of thing. If you guys have already subscribed to my newsletter, then you got a link to my Heart Breathings resource library in your most recent email that went out on Thursday, I believe. So it might have been Friday, actually. So go check your email because there's a link to that resource library, and it's in there. It's called the 2020 Writing Plan. If you still can't find it, just email me and I'll send it to you. My email is sarah@heartbreathings.com. So go through. What I will do is I will actually use this kind of like skinny washi tape, and I will go through my calendar and I will mark off how long it's going to take me to work on that part of the project. So let me pull up my calendar. So let's say I've got yellow or whatever, and I know that I'm going to be working on that in July. I will take it and I will put it on my schedule like that. So I'll put the washi tape through all the days that I'll be working on it. Now, I like to do that because the washi tape is removable. If you use like a highlighter, maybe try to use something like a friction highlighter so that you can erase it. But that's why I like to use washi tape, because you can take it off if something changes. So come up with your estimates. Well, first things, because I'm about to go because my husband just texted me and it's like, the baby is crying, so I'm going to have to go. But just to finish this up, here's what you need to do to come up with your 2020 writing plan is mark off all the days that you're not going to be working, your obligations, your vacations, your birthdays, your events. Then give yourself buffer days every month. Just make a decision. I'm going to give myself 3 extra buffer days, or I'm going to give myself 2 extra buffer days, whatever it is. It could be 10 extra buffer days. If you have a chronic illness or you're a caregiver, then give yourself even more extra days than what you think you're going to need. Mark those days off. Now, like I said before, when it comes to those like days that you can't necessarily schedule, but you're going to give yourself 3 buffer days, I just mark off those first 3 days in the month. You could also mark off the last 3 days of the month, but just go ahead. It's less about marking off the specific days and more about marking off how many days so you can see what's available in terms of time. So that's the first thing, is estimating your time and putting it on the calendar. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to estimate how long it's going to take you for each stage of the process for all the writing projects you want to complete next year. So for me, I would love to complete 5 books next year. So what I would do is I would fill out my project sheet for those 5 books. And then I'm going to estimate how long it takes me to do each project or each part of the project. Like I said, I'm already halfway through a rough draft. So I'm going to start project 1 is going to be the current book I'm already still working on. Then we go through all of those 5 steps of the process, and I'm going to estimate how many days to the best of my ability, along with buffer days. If I estimate it's going to take me 30 days, I give myself 35 just to be more realistic so I don't get behind. Then I color code, I set a color for each one of my projects, and I actually plan them out on my schedule. Now I can tell you, I know for sure what's going to happen to me is I'm going to start actually putting them on here, and I'm going to realize that I do not have time to write 5 books next year, that I was overestimating, that I was going to end up way behind, and that I'm just not going to have time to do it. And that can be really tough because you want to get it all done. But I'm telling you from experience, I hope that I can word this right because I want you to understand. If you end up behind from the beginning of the year, it just adds to your stress, your overwhelm, your feelings of self-doubt, your feelings of worthlessness. And that is not where you want to be as a writer. If you want to get into a good writing space, you need to feel good. So the more you can give yourself that buffer time and give yourself an easy writing schedule, something you know you can stick to, something you won't get behind right from the beginning. You can push yourself a little bit, but don't expect yourself to do stuff that's like superhuman. So when you plan in this realistic writing way, what happens is magical because you get to the end of January and you're actually on track or you're ahead. And how does that make you feel? It makes you feel excited. Like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this. This is actually happening. I'm so proud of myself. And that feeling of excitement and pride and motivation just rolls over into, oh my gosh, look how exciting February is going to be. I'm not going to lose this. And it gives you that excitement of like, I'm going to do it. I'm actually going to stand by the schedule, and I can really do it. And it gives you that confidence in yourself, which just begins like a confidence snowball, where then March gets even better, and then you get even faster, and you get more excited about your work, and you start pouring your heart and soul into it. And that is so much better of a feeling than ending up in January going, oh my gosh, I can't do this. This isn't working for me. Why do I suck so bad? Why can't I ever get anything done? And then you're mean to yourself because you're not getting things done. That's because you took on more than you can do. And it's not about you not being good enough. It's not about you, telling yourself all these terrible things. It's that you really and truly gave yourself more than you are capable of doing. Now, there are lots of reasons as to why you might be sabotaging your own success in that way. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you truly are, maybe you've been through PTSD or emotional trauma in the past and you're scared to believe in yourself. That is true, and that affects us as writers. But what you need, one of the best gifts that you can give yourself, is going through this kind of process where you give yourself a lot of extra time so that you can build that momentum. And like I said, it's going to be hard to give yourself that much time. It's going to be hard for me to go through this tonight and say, oh my gosh, there's no way. I have to come to the realization that there's no way I'm going to actually hit those 5 books this year. And it's going to be hard. But what's going to happen is I'm going to be so grateful for myself next year, because instead of wasting time beating myself up and feeling bad about my writing process, I'm going to have a process or a plan that I can stick to, and I might end up ahead, and I might end up getting an extra book done next year. That's what happened to me in 2018. I planned for 4 books and I actually wrote 5.5. And it was so huge because I allowed myself the space to fall in love with writing again without getting so burned out. So do yourself a favor and give yourself those writing buffers. Again, you can download this workbook if you want to use the specific workbook, but you can also do the same process just with a calendar for 2020. I wanted to mention to you guys before I go, because I see there's some conversations about it, my HB90 Bootcamp. If you like this process and you want to feel motivated about everything, and not just your writing, but everything in your life, and you want a system that can help you figure out how to do all of these things, without feeling so overwhelmed, then I would love for you to join the HB90 Bootcamp. It starts on Thursday with a kickoff call. That's a live kickoff call from me. And then we go through the course on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with a live kickoff call on Sunday. But it doesn't stop there. It's not like, oh, you just take the boot camp and then, you don't get any support from then on. There's actually a Facebook group where I do live videos, Q&As. It's like you become part of a small community of people who all support each other. There are weekly accountability posts. We post with each other. I'm doing a live video tomorrow night just for that Facebook group. That's a free workshop on 2019 review as we start to plan for 2020. So I do it every quarter. So this is the last one of this year to plan Q1 of 2020. But of course, you can take that course over and over and over again. You will get access to the course for a lifetime. So even if I re-record it or I update it or I upgrade it, you still get access to it forever, and you can retake it with us every quarter if you want. So the next one won't be until March. And it's normally $149, but it's $20 off for this round if you want to use my link, which has a Black Friday code. So again, I didn't put it onto this video because I was kind of rushing from the other video. But if you go to my previous video that I just posted a couple days ago, then you can find it there in the description to join the link. But I'll also put all these links in my community tab. I did see that I do see your question. Somebody also asked about Publish and Thrive. So Publish and Thrive is my self-publishing course. It's a 5-week course, and that goes into pretty much everything from how to come up with a strategy, but also all the marketing questions that you have, like especially if you want to learn how to market your books without taking out thousands of dollars in Facebook ads and that kind of stuff. In Publish and Thrive, I don't even go into like the details of Facebook ads and AMS ads, because I don't really do a lot of those kinds of ads, and I still make 6 figures a year. So I can teach you kind of my system for doing that. So it's, I think I ran it for $299 this past summer, but I did announce that that was like a beta price. So I haven't decided the price for the next round, but it's probably going to be at least $349, maybe $399. But I will tell you, you learn a ton in this course, and there's also a payment plan for it, and it's 5 full weeks and over 100 videos of content. And you get access to a Facebook group where you can ask questions as you go through the process. So that will run in February this year. So somebody asked how to join the bootcamp. The link to join the bootcamp is on my previous video, but I will post it in the community tab after this. So yeah, the payment plan I think I did last time was a 6-month payment plan. So we'll see what it all comes out, but I'll announce more about it in January. So let's see. Our past live student are allowed to listen to the live call. So you can watch the replay of the live call, but the live call is just for the current students, just because I have a Zoom room that has a limit for 100 people. And we've already got 75 people signed up for this next round. So I'm not inviting alumni to the live call right now. I saw somebody ask a question real quick about time zone differences. So the live calls happen at a specific time. If it doesn't work for you, that you like, let's say it's 4 in the morning where you live when I do the live call, you can watch the replay. And then everything else is just videos until except for the live calls. But then I also have support inside the Facebook group or on the course website. So if you have questions, you can post them there, or you can email me, and I'm pretty much available to you guys throughout the entire weekend and beyond in Facebook groups and stuff like that through email if you need help. So even if you can't make the live call, you'll still get to watch it on the replay. So you don't really miss anything. So feel free. And then, if it works out that you can hit like the Sunday call, but not the Thursday call, that's totally fine too. All right. Another just quick announcement before I go is, if you've been waiting for the Q1 HB90 planner, it just went up on Etsy yesterday, and these are normally $15, but I have them on sale right now for $12. So that kind of takes you through this process as well, the HB90 process. So if you can't afford the course this round, you could grab that planner and go through basically the same system, just without my support in the same way, and try it out for this next quarter if you want to grab that. But I also have a Just Goals planner that's not quarterly. It's takes you through the 4 quarters, and it's just going to be the goal setting pages, that's coming out later this week. And I'm super excited because I've also designed a social media planner for those of you that are doing social media marketing, like, you're promoting your books on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. So I've got a planner of that's coming out this week too. So lots of fun things, but you guys, I cannot believe we had over 200 people here. So that is just so cool. So Dana, the course that's $129 is the HB90 course. That's the boot camp that is all about like planning, breaking your goals down into projects and tasks and the Kanban board and that sort of thing. The course that's going to be about $400 is Publish and Thrive, which is my big like 5-week course that's like 100 videos and a lot of stuff. So that one's more expensive because I put months of my life into it, and it will totally change your, give you everything you need to self-publish. So yeah, please don't forget to hit like, please subscribe if you're not already subscribed to this channel. I have a lot of craft videos. I have an entire series on craft, like the craft of writing, coming up in January, and some marketing videos coming up in January also. Plus I'm going to be doing some videos in January or February talking specifically about how much money I make self-publishing. So if you're interested in that kind of, what do you guys call it? The tea, or what? I don't even know if that's what you would call it, but if you want to know the tea on how much money you can actually make self-publishing, that's going to be a new video going up as well. So definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I would love to see you guys in future videos. All the tea, yes. I feel like I'm trying to act younger than I am if I say tea. So yes, there will be a payment plan for Publish and Thrive. So check out on the beginning of the year when I make a little bit more decisions about that kind of stuff. I might also offer a coupon for this next round, so we will see. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for coming live. I really, really hope that you are excited about your 2020 writing plan. I hope that this helped you come up with the idea of how you're going to create your plan. If you do download the workbook and color code it and everything, I would love for you to tag me over on Instagram at HeartBreathingsBlog, or you can use the hashtag HeartBreathings and I will definitely see it. So thank you so much. As Karen said, I would definitely recommend taking the HB90 bootcamp before Publish and Thrive if you can, because the bootcamp is going to teach you how to plan everything you need to plan and how to manage your time. And then Publish and Thrive is going to give you all these ideas of how you need to actually get ready to publish. But Publish and Thrive is good for people who are just getting started writing, because it can really help you really narrow in on what's going to be like the best series or the best book you can write. But it's also good for people that have been publishing for a while and just aren't making the kind of money that they want to make. So lots of good ideas for that. But of course, even if you aren't interested in any of my courses, I am passionate about helping you guys hit your goals and meet your goals for next year and your dreams. So I am going to continue putting lots of free content up on this YouTube channel. So I hope you guys are enjoying that. Yes, Publish and Thrive is for writers who are looking to self-publish. And yes, for nonfiction writers. Karen, who's taken the course and is here on the live, can speak to that. But I obviously have a lot more experience with publishing fiction, but the fundamentals of how to publish, how to upload, like I walk you through the uploading process of every place. We talk about starting your business, how to handle your taxes, how to market your books, how to get cover art, stuff like that. That's applicable to everyone, whether you're writing nonfiction or fiction. But there are some parts that I do focus a little bit more on fiction. So you'll just have to decide. And if you have questions about it when it comes up, you can just email me and I'll help to answer your questions. All right. So I said I was going to go, and then I've been talking for 15 more minutes. All right, guys, this should go up as a replay as soon as we're done here. But I love you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of the Heart Breathings community here on YouTube. I hope that this free content is helping you to hit your dreams, to make your dreams come true as a writer. I am super, super grateful for you guys, and I will see you later. And yes, I will go kiss Evie for you guys. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Goodbye.